If you are enthralled with singing and dancing and want to be a star, you'll want to listen to AlissaBeth Morton, a young singing and dancing star with a long line of credits. She tells us how she climbed the musical theater ladder, including her tours on cruise ships. I would like to introduce you today to AlissaBeth Morton. AlissaBeth Jane Morton is a fabulous singer, has a wonderful voice, and is performing on the Azamara Pursuit. Done lots and lots of things.
Yes, yes. I've done over 100 stage shows in my life.
100, and you're not that old.
No, I'm not that old.
So, which ones are these your absolute favorites of the ones that you have done?
I'd have to say yes, because they're very special for different reasons. The Producers is a musical directed and choreographed by Susan Stroman, who is one of the forefront runners of women choreographers and directors in the Broadway scene. And The Producers is her wildest success. And there was a role called Ula, and she sings a song, When You Got It, Flaunt It, and does this huge dance number. And it's a dream role of mine. And I actually got the opportunity to understudy that role and perform as dance captain in this production. It was an equity production in Kalamazoo, Michigan. And Bill Burns was the associate choreographer for the original production of The Producers. So we learned the original staging and the choreography. We rented the original costumes. So it was a really big deal to learn the iconic choreography and steps from someone who was right there when it happened. And then Johnny Manhattan is a pre-Broadway tryout. It was an original show. It was written by Dan Goggin and Robert Lorick, who wrote The Tap Dance Kid. And it was written in the 70s, I do believe. And then they never touched it again until they found the tapes after Robert Lorick passed away. And they said, hey, these are some good songs. Let's try and revamp this. So then they found their home at Meadowbrook Theater in Michigan. It's Michigan's largest equity theater. And I grew up at Meadowbrook Theater. So it meant a lot to me that I got to audition for the bigwig New York City people. And I was cast as Gloria, the doe-eyed showgirl. And I also got to understudy the role of Rosie and the role of Lorraine. And the woman who played the role of Rosie, actually, I looked up to her. I definitely knew who she was before I got cast. I saw her as Elphaba in the Chicago production of Wicked. And before that, when I was a young child, I was obsessed with Cats, the musical. And she was actually Grisabella in the non-equity national tour that I saw when I was 4 years old. So I found the program and I brought it to rehearsal and I said, wow, this was you. And then we came to discover I was in part of the national tour of Evita. So very big Andrew Lloyd Webber fan, but I was in the national tour when I was a child. And she was the Mistress cover of Evita. And I remember vividly the day that she got to go on for the first time as Evita. So it was very cool to have our paths cross again.
Now, it sounds like you have a passion for both singing and dancing.
I do. Yes, I do. I started dancing first when I was 2.5. And I was a horrendous dancer, until I was in 5th grade. And then something clicked. And then all of a sudden I was top and placing in national dance competitions. And I was finally a good dancer. But then tap took me a little longer. And tap is my favorite now. But the dance teacher actually asked my mother if she could cut me from the tap number because I was so bad, I didn't even deserve the back row corner spot. So I took a lot of privates for the next 2 years, and this was in 4th grade. And then around 6th grade, I was in the second row center for the tap numbers. So I definitely put in the work for dance, but singing came naturally to me. When I was a child, we'd be listening to Little Mermaid, and I would match pitch with Ariel. And my parents were like, that's not normal. That's not normal that our child can like match pitch. And then when I was 4, I started harmonizing, and when I was singing in the church choir, I would find my own harmonies. My parents were like, okay, we need to get her like into like singing kind of thing, like doing the church choir and everything. And then when I was 5, at my dance studio, they were putting on a production of Annie, and I saw the audition poster, and I just saw it said Annie, and I love Annie. Like, wanted my hair to be dyed red because of Annie. And I said, Mom, they're doing Annie. Can I go see it? And then my dad said, that was an audition poster, wasn't it? My mom's like, yeah, but she doesn't know about rejection. We don't know how it's going to be. She's 5. Like, we can't. But they let me audition, and I sang Skinamarink with my own little choreography. And the director cast me as Molly. So,
Oh, wow.
And that was my first show. I was 5.
So how do you really break in to show business when you get a little older?
Well, I always had a very business-driven mind. I think it's because my dad's a businessman, but I just auditioned for all these things. I was part of an agency. I did some commercials, some modeling when I was younger, and then I really focused on dance. And then when I was in high school, I did a lot of community theater. That's where I learned my love for choreography and directing myself, kind of thing. And that was my training ground, really, was community theaters in the Rochester, Tri-County area. And I did some professional work, like little professional theaters. Didn't pay much, but a big deal. It was a big deal for me. Then I went to college for musical theater. And while I was in college, I joined the equity membership candidacy. And from then, I developed my own website, and I can audition, and you just go audition everywhere. I went to some New York City auditions in New York, and then I graduated from college with a whole bunch of roles under my belt, and I was ready for New York. So then I moved to New York on the 23rd of September. And I was in a training program of Open Jar Residency, and that is run by Jeff Whiting, James Gray, Stacia Fernandez, and Susan Stroman herself. So I auditioned for this program. I got in. It was a 30-day training program culminating with a showcase at the end in New York City. But the first day that I got to the city, I moved in at 1 p.m. And then the next morning, I woke up at 4 a.m. and stood in line for my first big New York City audition. And it was for RWS Company. They are actually the company that hires for cruise ships and theme park work. And I had friends who'd worked there before. So I was like, why not? I'll do it. So I stood in line. I sang my song. They called me back for the dance portion. And then I went to the dance call. I did it to my best ability. I was wearing a short little skirt and high heels. And there was a part where we had to turn around with our foot up in passe. And my passe was so high that my skirt got caught in my heels and I fell.
Oh, no.
So then I had to recover real quick from that. I kicked my face and then I got back up and started doing the choreography again. And they loved it because they were casting for a cruise ship. And they said, sometimes you're going to fall. Sometimes you're going to sashay the wrong way and you have to bounce back, and you bounce back really fast. So then they gave me 3 songs to learn for the next day, and I came in and sang them, and on the spot they said, we don't know when we're going to have you go out. It's either going to be in November, December, or January, but like, you're hired. So very weird, because I booked my first New York City big audition and there were like hundreds of girls there. So I've just been really lucky ever since that I've been employed with that company for over a year now, because they employed me on The Quest for 10 months. I did 10 months on The Quest, and we explored New Zealand, Australia, Indonesia, Vietnam, Singapore, Japan, China, Thailand, Alaska, Seattle. There was one other place. There was a lot of places we went. And Hong Kong, that was it. Hong Kong. And the Philippines. Oh, the Philippines were gorgeous. And that was my last 10 months. And then I did another gig with RWS, and it was a Christmas gig, which I love Christmas, so it meant a lot to me, in California's Great America, so nice weather. And during Christmas, it was kind of cool. And then I got a call on Christmas morning while I was in California saying, someone got injured on this next cast, and are you able to possibly come onto the ship? And I said, okay, yeah, I mean, it's been 2 months away from the ship, but I have been working, so I truly have had maybe 2 weeks total off in the last year and 5 months, but I wouldn't trade it for the world. I love the ship, love the job, and I love to perform, and it's all there. Yeah.
So for somebody who's interested in doing this and has talent, obviously.
Yes.
What's the process? You talk about auditions, you talk about RWS. How does all this work together? How does somebody do it if somebody's interested?
You just go to audition. You go to training classes. There's lots of training classes in New York City. Open Jar is one of the great training programs, even for high schoolers. And Making It on Broadway is another great training program. There's TPAP. There's Broadway Theater Project. I mean, there's lots of places that capitalize on preparing you for a career in this. But truly, you can just know it yourself. I mean, explore the business. My great teacher, Fred Love, likes to say an informed actor is a working actor. Get to know the casting directors in New York City by knowing their faces. So if you run into them at an audition or at a coffee shop, even, you can start up a conversation. I mean, I've gotten jobs from places because I've known people who are there and been like, oh, that's so-and-so. You go up, have a conversation with them. I'm on the short list for Bjork Lee, who is in charge of the Michael Bennett estate, for a chorus line. She and I ran into each other on the street, and I said, "You're Bjork Lee." And we had a 30-minute conversation about the history of a chorus line, which a chorus line is very near and dear to my heart. It's a great musical about the story of dancers and how they basically have to fight everything they can for one job, and it's a chorus job. But that musical was the vehicle for dancers actually having a voice in musical theater. They no longer were the background. They now were the forefront, and it changed the face of musical theater as we know it. I actually did a 100-page dramaturgical essay on a chorus line, and I presented it at the American College Theater Festival in Wisconsin. I do believe it was Wisconsin, when I was a senior in college. So,
what would you say is one of the biggest challenges you faced?
in performance-wise, or
whatever you want to talk about.
Oh, okay. I'd have to say the thing I had the most problems with was in college. I very much was driven towards the business side of things, to the point that I kind of let the camaraderie and friendship kind of fall away. But I don't regret that at all, because now I have tons of friends in New York City who also were very like-minded in business when they were in college, and we all meet up and we become friends. And yeah, but I think that was the most tricky part, was people in college and mean people. But you rise above it, and then you use them for character analysis.
And that kind of leads me into another area of thought.
Mm-hmm.
When you prepare to be a dancer or a singer, are you preparing for a certain period in your life? In other words, as you get much older, that may not be called for as much? And
Yes.
Do you prepare with a backup career? Or how do you worry about any of that?
For me, it's very well known that dancers have a timeline. The timeline is getting more extended now because dance teachers are more aware of bodies and what is damaging towards bodies. So people are having more long careers because we're not beating our bodies up as much as we used to in the 70s and 80s. We know our limits and we have the kinesiology to back that up. But you do have a time limit, and I would love to get into casting, directing, and choreographing. Basically, I'll still always be involved in theater in my life. It's in my blood. But I could definitely see myself going down a more creative route as opposed to performing on stage. But most of the roles that I will play are older women. So hopefully I'll work into my older age. Because
work into the real role.
Yes. Work into the real role. Right now I'm like a good little dancer, and I'm a little character actress, but when I get older, there's some really great roles I would love to delve into. Yeah.
So do you have any thoughts about film versus stage?
Oh, yes. I've done a little bit of film. Nothing I don't think anyone would have seen. If you've seen Gifted Hands, I have a small little role in that. It's the story of Ben Carson. You see me for like about 15 seconds. But film is very different than stage. They're both arts in their own ways. I personally prefer stage work because it's real, it's visceral, and the audience is in front of you, and every show is going to be different because of the audience and because of your interaction with the audience. Whereas on film, there's no one really there except for the crew. but it's still an art. It's very different. I had a long struggle getting into film work because I have a very expressive face and large eyes that they would say looked buggish when I was on screen. So I had to learn how to tone everything down and basically talk like a below average human kind of thing, as opposed to stage where everything's very heightened.
Now, when you say Ben Carson, are you talking about the current person who's head of HUD?
Ben Carson, as in the surgeon? The surgeon?
Yes.
Yeah, the open heart surgeon. Yes.
Interesting.
Yes.
Because he's now head of the Department
Yes.
of Housing and Development.
Yes, because he was running for president. Yes.
And that's my field, and that's how I know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fabulous.
So,
Well, I was in his movie.
Yeah, I didn't know there was a movie.
Yeah.
That was
Gifted
made.
Hands. They played it a lot when he was in the race.
And so that's part of what his life when he was a surgeon? Is that what the film is
It's
all
about his childhood and how he overcame all of his obstacles to become the surgeon that he is today.
Interesting. Interesting. What would you say is your best success story so far?
My best success story. I would have to say it's twofold. I'd have to say moving to New York City, making that leap. I mean, I moved to New York City shortly after I finished the run of producers in Michigan. I moved to New York City and I knew that I was going to do it. And I've stuck to it ever since. And I can't wait to get back to New York City and take classes and audition and live that New York City life. And then my second success was developing my own solo show while I was on the quest. It's called I Got a Crush on You, and it is jazz standards about love. And I just got to perform that last night.
And I was in your audience.
Yes, you were. I got to perform that last night, but it took about 3 months to develop. I mean, I did it all by myself. And then once I found the songs that I wanted to do, then I hired a composer to arrange it for everyone. And then I got to do it on the quest for a little bit. And then now I get to do it here. And eventually I would love to be a guest entertainer and come onto the ships and do some guest ent work. So I'm actually developing my second show right now. And it's going to be entirely Broadway show tunes.
That's interesting. So if somebody wants to do something like that, everything kind of funnels through this one company, doesn't it? Because cruise ships don't hire you on their own. Is that
Correct. There's different agencies. I know there's Belinda King, does Royal Caribbean, Duncan Stewart does Royal Caribbean. Belinda King does like Aida, Princess, all those things. RWS does Holland America and Azamara and Virgin now. They added Virgin. Yeah, it's all different agencies and you audition for them in New York City.
So do you audition for all three of them, or do you just
There'll be different
pick
days.
one and stay
No.
with it?
They'll be at different days. You audition every audition you can go to. You go to. Yeah. Because not only does Duncan Stewart cast for cruise ships, they also cast Chicago on Broadway. And they cast the Rockettes, which is definitely something I'd be interested in doing eventually. So you never know what is going to happen. You can go to an audition for something and then you get called back 6 months later saying, hey, we remembered you from this audition, but you're actually perfect for this show. It happens all the time.
That's fantastic.
Yes.
So you'd be interested in being a Rockette. Now, is that the Rockettes that are in New York City?
Yes. I have lots of friends who are on the Rockettes right now, and I grew up with them. Yeah.
Do they do kind of the same thing over and over, or is it different?
They refresh the choreo, I think it's every 5 years. They're in for a reboot soon. Yeah.
And why would you want to do that? Just curious.
Because Christmas is my favorite holiday. I love Christmas songs. I grew up seeing the Rockettes when they had the national tour. I would always go to the Fox Theater in Michigan and see the Rockettes, and they're just fierce women. I love that it's all women. It's so women empowering. Yeah.
What have you done to empower women?
What have I done to empower women? Well, I went to an all-girls Catholic high school, and while I was there, I was on the all-school board. So I was the PR historian, and then I was part of many clubs, SAD Club, Students Against Destructive Decisions. I was in Life Club. Obviously, you can guess what Life Club is about. And then there was another club, I'm forgetting the name of it, but we actually raised money for wells for women in Kenya. And when they would install wells, so they wouldn't have to walk miles for water. They could just get water, and it was like a purification system as well. I joined a sorority in college, my junior year of college, and there we had a philanthropy with Girls on the Run, which is all about empowering women. So I'm all about women empowerment. Mm-hmm.
So you're living and breathing your passion.
I am, and I'm so grateful for it. I love, 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 love where I am in life right now.
What's the hardest thing you've ever faced?
Ooh, hardest thing I've ever faced. I would have to say overcoming my ex-boyfriend committing suicide.
Ooh.
Yeah, that was a rough time. That was my junior year in college. But since then, I've found that through my experience and my grief, I've been able to help actually countless other people through their grief experiencing similar things, because suicide is actually very, unfortunately, common in younger people nowadays. So I've been able to use my experience to help other people.
That's something that we talk about in a number of the podcasts, the rising rate, really, of suicide among people even in high school.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think that is?
I think it's honestly because of social media. It's so easy to compare yourselves to others, because when you have a Snapchat or Instagram, you're not going to post a lame thing where you're like, I'm in right now under my covers watching Friends for the 5th time. You're not going to post that. You're going to post, look at me having a great time with my friends. So it's really easy to compare yourself to other people.
And then people start thinking that you have a lovely life, but they don't.
Exactly. Yes. Yes. And unfortunately, social media is a double-edged sword, especially for people in the performance arts. At many auditions, they will ask what your Instagram handle is and check your social media presence, because the more followers you have, the more people will come to the show. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword, because I would love to get rid of my social media, but I tried to get rid of it for around 3 months, and I had directors from theaters calling me and being like, hey, is everything okay? Haven't seen you post anything lately. So I'm kind of in that boat where I have to post on social media, but I try and be as realistic as possible. I really do.
What advice do you have for younger people today?
Advice? Be yourself. Don't think that you have to do something or say something to basically fit in, because if everyone was the same, it'd be really, really boring. So be yourself, and it's really fierce. And one day you'll find people who really appreciate you for who you are. And it's really wonderful.
And what advice would you give to somebody where you think there might be a person inclined to commit suicide? What would you tell them?
Even though it's really hard, contact their parents or someone who's an official. There's the suicide hotline. I believe they changed the number. I don't know what number it is exactly now, but just know that you're not alone in this, and you could have this burden put on you, but you can definitely get help from someone who is trained to do that.
And then what's your biggest dream for yourself? Where do you see yourself, for instance, in 5 years?
Obviously, my biggest dream would be performing on Broadway. I know it's cliche, but my ultimate goal in life is just to work and experience theater and give others the experience of theater. And then I'll be completely happy. I mean, be that regional theater or Broadway or working in even TV and film or modeling. I mean, there's so many different routes that I can go down in life, and it's all very exciting because I'm quite young, so I'm excited to see where I end up.
In some of these areas, you could actually be in a relationship and be in one place?
Yes, right now I have the motto of I'm young and I don't have anyone holding me back, and I kind of like that. But when I get older, I of course would love to have a relationship, but if that's not what happens, I would love to be a single mother who adopts a child from Japan. Yeah.
Why not?
Why not?
Why not? Is there anything else you'd like to leave our listeners with?
No, I can't really think of anything else. Thanks for tuning in. This has been my first podcast ever.
Do you have a CD, or are you going to think about making a CD?
Actually, I didn't think about recording anything for iTunes or CD or anything until I developed my solo show, and I've had quite a few guests ask if I have anything, so it's definitely something I'll look into when I get back to New York City of having a recording of my show.
And do you have a website?
I do have a website.
What's
yes.
What's your website address?
It is AlissaBethJaneMorton.net. So just my name and then .net. Mm-hmm.
And if you do a CD, you'll put it up there?
Absolutely. Absolutely, I would.
Well, let us know, because we have a shop page.
Oh, fabulous.
And for all of our guests, we give them a place to link in to the things that our guests produce.
Fabulous. Yeah, that'd be great.
So whether it's clothes or shoes or music or whatever it is.
Okay.
So
Amazing.
let us know.
Fabulous.
Well, thank you so much for your participation.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Good luck with everything you do on all these auditions.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. We hope you're inspired to tell everyone about our podcasts. Join our community by subscribing to our website, trailblazersimpact.com. And remember, you must learn a new way to think before you could master a new way to be.